Commanders, their offseason's been very up and down in the sense that they went out and they got a blue chip general manager in Adam Peters, and they fired Ron Rivera. Then they weren't able to get their head coach of choice in Ben Johnson because Ben Johnson wanted a significant amount of money to coach the Washington Commanders. And instead they settled on Dan Quinn, who is more or less kind of like Ron Rivera, at least in terms of overall resume. But I couldn't blame Dan Quinn for going to Washington because this is a remarkable opportunity. After all, this is a team with the number 2 overall pick in the NFL draft, and an NFL draft that's flooded with quarterback talent, in addition to having the most cap space in NFL history. So there was a question about how they were going to use that cap space, and this is where it gets a little polarizing for Washington Commanders fans, because some fans love what the Washington Commanders did in free agency, and some people wish it was a little bit splashier. To be honest, in my case, I typically just post all over Twitter and get my delusional Cowboy fan takes out on there so I could be unbiased when I appear for you guys on this channel. So I was roasting the Commanders a little bit, even saying the Washington Commanders signing all of these players in 2024 is the equivalent to this commercial. But to be honest, I'm a huge fan of what they've done in free agency, primarily because I don't think you win Super Bowls by spending in free agency, but I do believe you could build a solid foundation for your team by spending intelligently in free agency. And in the case of the Washington Commanders, they've made some pretty intelligent decisions. For example, they signed veterans like Zach Ertz, Austin Eckler, and Bobby Wagner. Bobby Wagner is still an incredible football player who has the capability of being the captain of the Washington Commanders defense. This is very significant considering the familiarity between Bobby Wagner and Dan Quinn. And if you pay attention to all these signings, you'd notice that a lot of them are former Dan Quinn proteges. Dante Fowler Jr., Dorrance Armstrong. I guess we'll throw Tyler Biadasz in there even though he's offense. I'm a huge fan of all of the moves that the Washington Commanders made. They didn't overspend on a halfback when they signed Austin Eckler for 2 years up to $11.43 million. Should make a solid duo with Brian Robinson. They got a kicker with one of the best legs in the NFL in Brandon McManus. Tyler Biadasz was remarkable for the Dallas Cowboys last year as a center. Dorrance Armstrong was worth every single penny of that 3-year, $45 million contract. Dante Fowler Jr. was solid for us as well. And signing Marcus Mariota to a 1-year deal up to $10 million is probably so whoever they decide to bring in as a quarterback will have a mentor. Originally, we thought that there was going to be this really cute story where the Washington Commanders were going to draft Drake May with the number 2 overall pick, and they're going to have an all North Carolina quarterback room because you also have Sam Howell there. If they wanted to do the funniest thing ever, they could have also signed Mitch Trubisky, but they wouldn't. But it seems like once they signed Marcus Mariota, there's a huge question as to what Sam Howell's fate was going to be. Now, in Sam Howell's case, a part of me is very happy for the guy because you don't really see quarterbacks that get the opportunity that he gets. I mean, this is a guy that got selected in the 5th round of the 2022 NFL draft, and he had a whole year where the Washington Commanders went all in on him, and he was placed in a pretty solid situation. I mean, the Washington Commanders brought in Eric Bieniemy, they had Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson as wide receivers, they had Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson, and in the beginning of the season, Sam Howell actually looked like a player that belonged in this league. And then as the season went on, that really wasn't the case, ultimately finishing with 3,946 passing yards, 21 touchdowns, and 21 interceptions. Also led the league in sacks, 65 sacks. And so was this as a result of Sam Howell sucking or the Washington Commanders not really having an offensive line? It's really difficult to say, but I don't think Sam Howell's body of work was good enough to obviously keep him and try to move forward with him in year 2, especially when you have the number 2 overall pick. And it seems like the Washington Commanders also agreed with this, because according to Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport, the Washington Commanders are sending last year's starter Sam Howell to the Seattle Seahawks in a pick swap per sources. I honestly am a huge fan of this trade. The Seahawks receive Sam Howell, a 4th round pick and a 6th round pick, and the Washington Commanders upgrade those picks to a 3rd round pick and a 5th round pick. So the Seattle Seahawks lost Drew Lock